Here's another Talking with Tab by the fire. So, I want to talk about my pregnancy. She's cute. But was she? Fire's blazing. Okay. So, I'm going to take you kind of like where it all started and where we ended up, because she's a long story. I got married in 2019 to my amazing, fabulous, sweet, sweet husband. And we were not trying, and we got pregnant in March 2020. And he left for UAE. He was being deployed, and I had a miscarriage when he was gone. It was a very traumatic time, not only because I had a miscarriage, but somebody in my family decided it was a good idea to tell every single person they've ever met. And so it was extra traumatic because I was alone. Everybody knew, people were texting me, all these things, and I just wanted to shut down. Thankfully, my cousin was there to kind of help me, and my friend Haley. And so when he came home, we decided to try for who we have now as Forrest. We found out around August 2020, and it started kind of to go downhill. So I started getting really, really sick. I was throwing up. I lost about 15 or 20 pounds initially because I was so sick. And they would not give me Zofran or any type of nausea medication because I had a heart condition, so it was considered a Class C, which meant it could cause a cardiac situation in my son. It sucked. I tried everything, B12, sour stuff. Like, sour stuff kind of helped, but I still was throwing up so much I had to quit my job. Like, I could not get up without throwing up. One time I even choked on a vegan hot dog. It got lodged in my throat. It was terrible. Anyways. And then we bought a house in Pennsylvania. I got a job there. I was there for a week. I was incredibly sick. I could not end up being alone, actually, and so we moved in with some family members. Thank God for them. They were a blessing to us for 3 or 4 months, until we bought a home in Michigan. But in November, there was kind of a traumatic experience that happened with a family member threatening me and pretty much saying he's going to unalive me, my child, my family, all these things. And this person I hadn't talked to in a couple of years, so it was extremely out of the blue, and it was just insane. They were inebriated. No excuse, but background. And in December, I got sick and I had to have a heart monitor. That's me and my little heart monitor there. But I actually got worse, and I ended up having to spend some days in the hospital, and then my husband came home from in the middle of the field. The Red Cross had to pull him out of the field and put him on a plane and send him home. So all in all, that was pretty traumatic. I was 20-something weeks. It was December. He was not until April 18th. February came around, Noah came home, and spent some time with Forrest and I, which was amazing. He was working, doing concrete. And in March, I want to say 10th, I went into the hospital because I was having contractions. I was just really swollen, and I was showing very clear signs of preeclampsia, and nobody noticed or said anything, even at the hospital. And they found protein in my pee. That's important. So I went home, and on the 16th, the day my son was born, March 16th, I went in and did a normal checkup. It was just apparently like a normal, 35-week. It was my 35-week appointment. It was the day I turned 35 weeks. She looked at me and she said, "You have to go to the hospital. He will likely be born today. We're really worried about you. Please call your family," so on and so forth. So I get in my vehicle and I go across the street to the hospital. I go in, and not even 10 minutes, there's 7 providers. There's 3 doctors and 4 nurses all around me, starting magnesium. They were putting stuff on me. It was very traumatic. I'm so lucky I had my cousin Emily on the phone, because lifesaver, I'm telling you. They literally, the moment Noah walked in the door, they sent me back to a C-section. Now, the C-section. So they were just going to do it normally, and where that you take him out and you hold your son and blah, blah, blah. Well, that was not the case. They ended up putting me under general anesthesia, so I was completely out. I didn't see my birth. My husband could not be in the room for my birth, so he was born and put in an intubator because he couldn't breathe on his own. My very sweet husband, well, first of all, I should back up a little bit. They thought we were going to have seizures, and they thought we were going to potentially unalive, okay? So they were really worried about both of us. It was a very horrible, horrible experience that I hope nobody goes through. And 45 minutes later, they said to my husband, "Hey, you want to come see your son?" And he's like, "Excuse me, where's my wife? What's going on? What happened?" And I was actually unconscious, and I lost a lot of blood. I actually ended up having to get a blood transfusion, which is not very common. A lot of the story might not be that common, because I've never heard it before. I wish more people would share their stories like this, but we couldn't hold Forrest for about 6 days. This is our sweetie Bubba, and that's me. Pretty yikes on bikes, if you know what I'm saying. He was in the NICU for 22 days. I was in the hospital for 5 days because I had to have magnesium for 48 hours. Usually it's only 24 hours, so I needed the extra help. And then I had the blood transfusion for a long time. And then I was discharged that next day after all of that stuff was finally finished. Forrest had a breathing problem, so he would desat, which is like he would stop breathing and hopefully wouldn't turn blue. Sometimes he would, and they'd have to help stimulate him in some way to get him breathing on his own. He was intubated for about 6 days. That's why we could not hold him for a while, which really was some of the worst things. Even though I just had a C-section, I got up the same night and walked to the nursery because he wasn't with us. Man, it was terrible. And I have a lot of videos of myself pregnant saying, "Don't ever do this again. This has been horrible. Don't ever do this again," which obviously I could not because I no longer have a uterus, but that whole experience from middle to end there was extremely traumatic and not great for me. I am so happy for women that have a great pregnancy story and a great, newborn story, but not everybody does. I didn't. A couple of my friends didn't. And I wish more people talked about it because it's almost taboo, and I think that's ridiculous. Like, we should know what we're getting into. I didn't even know half this stuff existed until it happened to me. And a couple weeks after that, Noah left to go back to California for the Marines to check out. So I was alone with the newborn for quite some time. And got severe PPD. It was not a good time for me in the newborn pregnancy to newborn era. Yeah. I should also say the preeclampsia things where I was extremely swollen. I had headaches, blurry vision, a very high blood pressure, protein in my pee. They knew all of this. It was progressively getting worse, and they didn't do anything at first. And then I almost died. I completely blame some of the providers that I had seen.